Good evening, colleagues. Thank you so much for joining us on the third session of our webinar series. This is brought to you by LATAZ with support from the District Council, and it is under the project Competence-Based Language Teaching Orientation Project. And this project is taking shape in two forms. We have face-to-face workshops in 6 provinces and the webinar series. And today, we are glad you could join us as we delve into one of the principles of competence-based language teaching, approaches and methods for primary schools. And our presenter is no other than Barbara Kabwa, a seasoned literacy teacher from Mufulira at Chivolia Primary School. She holds a primary degree specialized in literacy. She's participated in many literacy campaigns as well as catch-up programs initiated by various stakeholders under the Ministry of Education. She is also a member of the LATAZ Primary Literacy Special Interest Group, and she's going to take us through this particular session today. As you join, we ask that you do not unmute your microphone because the settings have been set up to ensure that immediately you join, you are muted. You will be able to unmute yourself when we begin the question and answer session if you'd like to ask her something at the end. For now, we'll give her time to make her presentation, and when she's done, we'll have a question and answer session where you can contribute or ask a question where you need clarification. At this moment, I am your host, George Kanyama, your LATAZ president, and would like to now introduce to you Barbara Kabwa as she takes us through. Barbara, please take the stage.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for having me on this program. Yes, and I'll take you through the approaches and methods in competence-based language teaching, as the president earlier alluded to. So we'll be looking at 2 approaches which have a lot of methods in there. So let's begin. So for my introduction, I'm saying, what is competence-based language teaching? So competence-based language teaching, CBLT, is a foreign language teaching approach that focuses on the importance of achieving the abilities and knowledge needed to survive in the target society. Learners need methods that can help them communicate effectively and face real-life situations successfully. So we are saying, as the learners learn things, these things are supposed to help them apply in their daily lives. The learners in this approach need to be actively involved in the learning process, and the teachers take the role of a facilitator. So as they become facilitators, it doesn't mean that they just sit back and look at the learners, but the teachers are supposed to be there to give them guidance, help whenever need arises. CBLT allows students to advance based on their ability to master a skill or competence at their own pace, regardless of the environment. Okay, so in order to come up with good approaches and methods in competence-based language teaching, the teacher needs to be aware of the key aspects that go with CBLT. According to Williamson, the first approach is performance. The second is meaningful teaching. The third is autonomous learning. And the fourth one is the problem-solving skills. So now these skills are not necessarily going into details because the information is already there on LATAZ platforms. They can be able to be sourced there because a presentation was earlier made concerning the same. So according to the Oxford Dictionary, an approach is a way of dealing with a situation. It is a way of teaching whose principles can be applied in many different ways. An approach gives rise to methods, the way of teaching something, which uses classroom activities or techniques to help learners learn. So in my presentation, I'll look at two, as I've earlier mentioned, but in these two, we'll find a lot of methods which we can use to teach our learners. So this presentation will help to highlight on a number of approaches and methods which can be used, and the following are some of them. So to begin with, I'll look at the structural method. So now, in this structural method, there are so many other things which are involved. This is a method which focuses on 4 approaches in language teaching. So these approaches are listening, speaking, reading, and writing. So we'll look into details on each one of these. For any language to be successfully taught, the 4 mentioned skills are a cornerstone and should be effectively taught using a number of learner-centered activities. You know, so as we are looking at CBLT, we are looking at a situation where learners are supposed to be actively involved in the learning process. And whatever activities which are supposed to be done, we should make sure that learners are involved, they participate fully, and the teacher will just be there to guide. So that is an emphasis as we are looking at the competence-based language teaching. So the students are supposed to be involved in solving problems. Students should be involved in answering questions. So those are the activities which are going to be used. Students formulating questions on their own, they should be able to ask the teacher as well, not only the teacher asking the learners all the time. They should discuss at a given time, explain, debate issues, or even brainstorming during class. Students can also play games to learn materials that may otherwise be considered boring. You agree with me that when you are teaching the young ones, we are looking at primary level, it is very important that you incorporate games, you incorporate songs, you incorporate those things or activities which will arouse interest in them to learn. And in the end, they'll be able to grasp whatever it is that you are teaching them. So group presentations will also be there, shared topics, quizzes, to mention but a few. So let's look at one at a time, one by one, the skills I mentioned. We said listening and speaking, reading and writing. So to begin with, I'll look at listening. Yeah, so to teach listening, the teacher can follow 3 steps, which are pre-listening, listening, and after listening. So now when I talk of pre-listening, this is where you have to prepare the learners for what is to come, what they are going to listen to. You have to get them to become ready to be able to listen to whatever it is you have for them. Listening now, this is the actual part when now they will have to listen to you or listen to anything which you have prepared for them. And after listening, they have to answer some questions, they ask some questions as well. And so those are the steps you follow as you teach listening. So the teacher can get learners ready to listen by using a number of activities. So you see, when making learners ready to listen, it is not an easy thing because at times, especially if you're dealing with the young ones, you really need to be able to capture their attention. So in order for you to do that, you need some activities which can just make them be able to be there and just listen to you. So you can use activities such as the Give Me 5 as shown below. So with me here, I have something to talk about there. When you talk about the Give Me 5, this is where now you want to get your learners attention. You want them to be there to listen to you. So we have the icon for eyes there, and it's saying that the eyes are watching. So they should be able to look at you or to be able to look at whoever is presenting anything to them as you want them to listen. We have the ears there because it is very important. Before I move on to ears, it is very important for eye contact. It is very, very cardinal that as you teach the young ones, whoever you teach, the eye contact is very, very important because it helps that attention. Learners should be able to look at the teacher or at anyone. If it is a friend teaching them, they should be able to look at them so that the attention is there. And for the ear icon there, the second one, I hope you can see it. Ears are listening, meaning they are supposed to listen. The mouth is closed, not talking. If you want to listen, you do one thing at a time. So they should know, even the learners, you should teach them. You have to be able to do one thing at a time. So if you are listening at that time, just listen. So the mouth should be closed. I remember a long time ago when they were teaching us, they would always say, your finger on your mouth, and then you go, shh, and then you just keep quiet and listen to the teacher. So then the body, very, very cardinal. This is where we teach learners now to sit like Leo, sit like Jumbo. This is where it applies. So when they're relaxing and all that, that's when they sit like Jumbo. If you need them to pay attention and listen to you, of course they have to sit upright. They sit like Leo, and their body should be upright, like the way the icon is showing there. The hands, of course, when learners are holding things in their hands, touching things in their hands, the attention is quickly driven away from whoever is talking. They have to fold their hands. Their hands have to be still. So if you want to get your learners to listen to you, it is very important that you follow these steps which are here to help, to guide. You do these activities with the learners. Fold your arms, they fold their arms. Sit like Leo, they sit like Leo. Look at me. Can you pay attention and listen to me? Then now you can begin to talk to your learners. This, ladies and gentlemen, listening can be able to be used even with the older learners, not just the younger ones. So it is very, very important. This skill is quite important. Let's look at another one. Okay, we can look at the top 5 listening activities for children. So there are so many, like if you're teaching them, since we are looking at primary, it is always good to bring something interesting. You want them to listen, to pay attention to you. Read a story. So story reading is very good for the young ones. An interesting story, not very long so that they don't lose their focus and attention quickly. So you get a short story and read to them. Make sure they are listening to you, and then you can ask questions to see if they were able to hear whatever it is you were presenting to them. This activity is good, and it helps learners to develop their listening skills because they know at the end of a story, the questions will come. You can initiate conversations with the learners. They talk to each other. The other child can pay attention, or the other student pay attention while the other one is talking. They should be able to dialogue one with the other, not all of them talking at the same time. Encourage learners to talk one at a time so that they can be able to hear what their friends have to say. So with the older ones, it's like when we are learning at university, this is now what we call discourse analysis, where you have to know who is talking at one time and the other. So become a model listener. That is the third one. The learners should at one time listen to you, but at another, you as a teacher also should listen to your learners so that as they talk, they see that listening is a very, very important skill, and it will help them moving forward as they get to learn other things. Then also play the directions game. They can be able to, you give them directions and they should be able to carry out whatever directions you have been able to give them. And the famous game which we used to play a long time, and we still play it, my learners really love it when we play the Simon Says game. So for the Simon Says game, they have to pay attention to the instructions you give them. If it is to sit down, you have to say Simon says, sit down. If you remove Simon says and you just say sit down, the child is not supposed to sit. This is when now we see which child is paying attention, which learner is paying attention and is able to listen to instructions. So you'll be able to say, Simon says, sit down, and they will sit down. If you see a child standing up instead, then it means they were not able to get the instructions and they didn't listen to you. So this is a very exciting game. It can be played when you are teaching listening. It's a very good activity. Flashcards can also be used even as you teach the same. Yeah, so we can go on and on. Let's see other things. Okay, so let's look at another important skill. So the skill of listening is best taught by combining it with other skills, especially the speaking skill. So when you're teaching listening, it usually goes with speaking because at the end of the day, questions will be asked and you expect your students or learners to be able to say something. So it goes with a speaking skill as well. So when teaching speaking, the teacher can engage learners in a number of activities, such as dialogue. You can come up with a dialogue. If you teach them, for example, a particular structure, for example, they are looking at how to use who, whom, what, where, you can engage learners in a conversation where they have a dialogue and they ask each other, what is your name? The other one will respond, my name is what? And they'll like that, where are you going? They have a dialogue like that. You can pair your learners and then give them a structure to go with and let them present in front of their learners. By so doing, you as a teacher are able to improve the learners' self-esteem because they'll be able to come in front and present something to their friends. So this activity is very, very good and it should be used in the classroom setup. Even as we are looking at competence-based language teaching, they should be able to apply whatever they learn. So a dialogue is very good in that manner. So even picture discussion, you give your learners a picture, then they'll be able to discuss that picture. What is happening in the picture? They can talk about colors, they can talk about directions, they can talk about anything which is there. They talk about the people, objects which are there. So in picture discussion, there are so many things which can arise there. The verbs can be taught, nouns can be taught, prepositions can be taught, a lot of things. So it is very, very encouraged that even as you teach the speaking skills, you get learners to participate in discussions, picture discussions. Role play is also very good. You tell stories, read a story to them. You as a role model, you should be able to read a story to your learners and then in turn, give them stories to also read one at a time. They can be coming in front of the class to read to their colleagues. Songs are very, very important because songs do not only help with memory, they also help learners to become very good speakers of the language. So as they sing those songs, they are able to know certain words and they speak them well. Rhymes, very good. Poems also can be used as you teach the speaking skill. All these activities I've talked about, they are very good and they promote self-esteem. These should be encouraged even as we look at competence-based teaching. Let's move on. Let's look at the reading skill. So this reading skill is very, very cardinal as well. And the teacher should take it seriously. So from baby class onwards, learners will be taught letter names and sounds. which are building blocks to teaching the English language. So the use of synthetic phonics method helps learners to know words, improve pronunciation, and become good speakers of the language. So as we teach reading, we use phonics. It is a very, very good method. There are so many other methods which can be used, like the look and say method, the whole word method, but these methods, the ones I've just mentioned, they come usually after you have already taught the phonics method, because the phonics method is there to help learners know the letter sounds one at a time, and so be able to blend them to make syllables, and they can also make words. So additionally, this method avoids memorization of words without knowing their form. So like I said, you just look at a word. For example, if you teach the whole word mother, so you teach the word mother, the child there, if you just teach it as a whole word, they'll just memorize it. But if you teach the sounds which are involved in that word, the how that the O can at times be sounded as A. So because in phonics method, the rules are there on how to pronounce each sound, it helps learners to know how to read very well. So like I said, it avoids memorization of words. Learners will just know a word by segmenting, using sounds. And then it also, to teach literacy using this method, the following steps are used. Okay, so these steps we are looking at here, which is phonemic awareness, phonics, fluence, vocabulary, writing and comprehension. These are called competences. They are called competences, but they also come in form of steps. So these steps, if well used, they are very good for teaching reading. So let's just take a look at these in details. Okay, so let's look at the 5 big ideas of beginning reading. Okay, so comprehension. Comprehension is the goal of reading. We use the other 4 big ideas to build up to reading comprehension. This can start with listening comprehension for pre-readers, like we are talking about here, and readers who are still learning how to decode. Okay, so when we are talking of decoding, this is speaking. Who are still learning how to speak in simple terms. So we can start with phonemic awareness. So that is the way. That is phonemic awareness. So this is the ability to identify and play with individual sounds in spoken words. Practice blending the phonemes, prepare students to read words, and practice segmenting phonemes prepares them to spell words. So this phonemic awareness is very, very cardinal, because as you explain to the learners how each sound or letter is sounded, they'll be able to use that even as they begin to spell words. Very important. Then we have the phonics. The phonics, understanding how letters and groups of letters link to sounds to form letter sounds, relationship and spelling patterns. It involves learning letter sounds, correspondence, and common spelling patterns. Phonics supports decoding and spelling and leads to fluent reading. So we want to have a fluent reader, even as we are looking at competence-based teaching. We want to have a fluent reader. And so these kind of steps are very, very important, even as we teach the learners. When we go to fluency, here, the 3rd one. Okay, so fluency, the ability to read words, phrases, sentences, and stories correctly with enough speed and expression. When decoding skills become automatic, students can more easily focus their attention on understanding words and text. Fluency is the bridge to comprehension. So even as we are teaching this fluency, we should be able to explain the new words to the learners, the meaning of words. Learners should be able to know each particular word you introduce to them, the meaning of the word. They should not just be able to read it, but they should know how to also explain what it talks about or what the word is all about. As they read with fluency, it is because they know the sounds correctly. That's how they can read with fluency, because without that, the fluency will not be there. So it is very, very important as we teach reading. So what are we saying now? After that, you go to vocabulary there. Knowing what words mean and how to say and use them correctly. So like I said, even in fluency, vocabulary will be there now to make sure learners know the meaning. Many word meaning are learned through reading, but before students can read text on their own, vocabulary can be taught through oral language, interactions, and reading books aloud. So it encourages reading aloud. Very, very important. Learners or students should be able to read aloud, even to their friends. So students who lack self-esteem cannot be able to read aloud. These are the kinds of students, as a teacher, you are supposed to pay attention to make sure you boost their self-esteem by encouraging them to read. In a class, make sure you talk to the learners not to laugh at their friends. As someone is reading, encourage learners to listen attentively and not just to laugh at the mistakes. When mistakes are made, the teacher is there now to make sure they are corrected and the correct thing should be read. So when you are talking of reading comprehension, this is the ability to understand what you are reading. In addition to vocabulary and fluent reading of text, reading comprehension requires background knowledge, understanding sentence and text structures, monitoring, understanding, and connecting ideas. So in the end, we are going to, after having had a fluent reader, now we'll have a child who's able to read with understanding. So in short, comprehension focuses on reading a text with understanding. The child should be able to read and interpret whatever it is that they are reading. So this is what we are looking at here. So some reading activities can include the audio storytelling. So this one, you can ask a child to read in front of the friends, you can record that, and they can be able to listen to whatever it is they have read. You as a teacher, on the other hand, will just be there to guide the learners even as they listen to whatever it is they are listening. There's guided reading as well. This guided reading, it does not mean that you have to get now the books or the textbooks or whatever scripts they are reading, you give the learners and you sit back and enjoy your leisure time or whatever it is you're doing. At this particular time, the teacher should be able to guide learners as you give them the textbooks. As they read, they take turns. It is good for the learners to read one at a time, because as they do so, you can be able to get whatever mistakes are there, they can be easily spotted out. And the learners, in that way, they will be guided. So guided reading involves the teacher being there as the learners are reading. You spot out in the intonation as they read. Make sure where there is a full stop, a child is able to stop. Where there is a comma, they rest a bit as they read. Where there is an exclamation mark, they change their voices, the tone of the voice like that. It means to shout if they are surprised and all that. It is very, very important to give the learners those kind of skills so that they become good readers. So even in competence-based language teaching, we will be using more of that so that learners can be able to use that in future. Yes, to present their work to other people. They read confidently without feeling shy, because you as a teacher, you've been able to guide them nicely. Okay, so There are some games also, the word hunt. You can put some words in a basket, the games which you can play. Then learners can be able to hunt for games, for words in there by getting words. For example, you put them in the basket and they just dip their hand there without looking at the word and hunt for words. For example, you can put word families there. You want a particular set of family for them to pick. For example, if you get the 80, that is the at family words, where you can have words like fat, at, sat, mat. You put them there and they hunt for those kind of words. Of course, you mix them with other words. It is very, very interesting as they do that. Decoding games, yeah, that is also very good. Read aloud as a class. This one, as you do that, make sure you have already gone through the text, and then now you try to read it together as a class. You've already taught them where to, the intonation and all that, you've taught them. Then now you just want to see how they do it. This one should not be overdone, because if not well guided, the class will just sound noisy and all that. Learners really need to be guided on this one. Then there is partner reading. This one you can partner learners. You give them, maybe you pair them so that they read a text which they later have to explain to the other friends in class. So this can be done first to third grade. That is grade 1 mostly to grade 3. Yeah, so there's word searches. They come in form of puzzles. You can write some words like in puzzles, where they will have to find the words which they have learned already. Reading together is almost like read aloud as a class. So these are activities which can be done, and they're very, very interesting. Now we look at the writing skill. So bear in mind that all these I'm talking about are in structural approach. It has all these methods in there. So the writing one now. Teaching writing starts with letter formation. All the letters of the alphabet are taught one at a time. The teacher should know the types of letters, and these letters include the small letters. So when we talk of the small letters, we are simply talking about letters which sit on the line, and they are small. They neither go up or down. They are just there on the line. So these letters include the letter A, C, and up to Z, like I've shown there. So now it is very, very cardinal that the teacher knows the types of letters, because teachers, as role models, as you teach the learners, whatever you teach them, that is what they'll be doing. Teach them the tall letters as well. Let the learners know there are also some letters which go up. Teach them the 4 letters, those which go down. Very important. I've seen learners probably in the 5th grade, and they still do not know how the Q should be written on the line, how it should sit on the line. The letter P still going up. So when you look at such learners, just know that it was not emphasized. So this really needs to be emphasized. So the teacher also teaches the learners how the letters are formed. Very important. And talks you through the formation. So as you teach the formation of letters, make sure you talk through the formation, explain to them where to begin the letter as you write them on the line, where to start from and where to end. You can talk like you start from the middle, you go around, up and down. If you're making letters, for example, the letter A, you go around, up and down, like that. You can find ways of how you can talk through the letters. There are so many programs. One of them is the Jolly Phonics program. It is very good with letter formation. You can be able to see how that each letter of the alphabet has been given what to follow in terms of forming the data. And if learners are taught that way, then indeed we are going to have a very good handwritings even in the classroom setup. So once learners are able to write, the teacher can dictate, or rather I've skipped something, some pre-writing activities can include learners writing in the soil. That is what they do, especially for the pre-grades. So they'll be, they can write in the soil. They like activities like that, where they just go outside as if they are playing, but they are actually writing. So they write in the soil, in the air. They can write on their palms or in their palms. They can even use their friends' backs to write, and so on. Once learners are able to write, the teacher can dictate words for learners to write on their own. So now they already know the alphabet and all the letters in the alphabet. Then whatever you can ask them now to write, even dictation, they can do it because they already know. So by third grade, by third to fourth grade, learners can write their own short stories. You can encourage them to be writing stories. Of course, sentences, they already start writing by grade 1. They're able to write sentences. Now, stories can be written like that. So what we have just looked at is the structural method, or rather approach, and the methods which are involved in this approach. Now, secondly, I want us to look at another one, and that is the communicative language approach. The communicative language teaching strategies focus on promoting interaction, fluency, and real-life communication. So this method is good for early grade learners because of the following reasons. So we know that these methods, they come with advantages and disadvantages, but these two have more advantages than the disadvantages. So in this communicative language approach, it teaches language as a tool for communication. So when we teach the learners in our classrooms, whatever we teach them, it should not just end there. They should be able to use this in the conversations, in their daily lives, in the conversations at home, in the conversations at church, wherever, whatever platform they are given, they should be able to use the language you teach them. As they grow, this same language will be used in their businesses and in whatever it is they'll be doing. So it brings real communicative experiences into the classroom. So these are real life experiences we are talking about. Activities like at the market, you can have that and discuss at the market. You are dealing with, talk of, for example, how much. You're talking of much, you're teaching much, you're teaching how, you're teaching plenty, you're teaching what. So now you want them to practice that. Bring a real life scenario there. Let them communicate in classroom. It uses authentic materials and activities in the classroom. It is used to teach all language skills. So all the skills I've talked about, listening, speaking, reading, writing, this communicative language approach is used to teach all those things. In addition to language structure, the teacher now assumes the role of facilitator rather than a model. So in this case, when just like the Richards, JC, and Rogers put it in their book for methods of teaching, when you become a role model, it means you show your learners what to do. Now, when you assume the role of facilitator, you are there to see what they can do after what you have shown them. Okay, so you are just now there to see what they are able to do, and then you just guide where need be. And this role should be taken seriously because it fails at times when you have instructors or teachers who are just there because they have become facilitators. They just lay back and just sit and let learners do it on their own without proper guidance. It should not be like that. The teacher should always be there to listen attentively and then be able to guide the learners. So these methods, if well utilized, they are very, very good. So some activities used in communicative language teaching classroom can include the following. We have role play. We have games. Very good. Role play and games, these are very, very good. They help with memory. What the learners do, they cannot forget. interviews, group work, opinion sharing, all these are very good. So when you're talking of games, the scavenger hunt is an exciting game. So this one, you can even use it with the pre-graders, like for the preschool. These, you can work with sounds to begin with. You can hide some sounds which you want them to look for. Then you give them hints of a particular sound you want them to find. Okay, so if you're talking of, for example, the letter S, you can give them a hint to say it sounds like a snake, and it goes like, it's like a curve, it is curved like that. You give them hints and then you let them look for that sound. Of course, you place different sounds everywhere. You hide them somewhere in places where they will have to find them in boxes, in a plastic, or in anything, and they'll be there looking for them. The same game can be used with grade 3s, grade 4s, where you hide certain words and you can give them hints of the meaning of the words, and then the beginning letter, the initial letter, and then they'll have to look for that word. It's a very exciting game, and the children really enjoy it. It is very good to be used in a classroom setup. So by so doing, you're making them actively involved in the learning process. So with me down here, I've got some steps for conducting role play. So role play is very, very exciting. And as you conduct it, you can identify the situation. Identify the situation. Are you talking about, like I earlier mentioned, at the market or at the bus station, whatever scenario is there? Let them, when you give them details, that is the second step. The first one is to identify the situation. Now, the second one, give them details about what you want them to play, to role play. Then assign roles. Okay, so at the market, you will be the seller, then this one will be the customer. What? Give them what to sell, and then let them act out the scenario. Very, very interesting. They'll be using the structure you have taught them in class, and they'll be learning at the same time. So after they act out, the other learners will be there to pay attention and listen, watch. Then you discuss what you have learned together as a class. You discuss with the learners. So meaning they'll be able to say what they have learned. Even you as a teacher, you'll be able to say something. Everyone in this case will be able to participate. So what we are trying to say is that in this competence-based language teaching, we are trying to promote a holistic child. A child will be able to know a lot of things, put language in use, not just learn the language, but put it in use in real life situations. So this is very, very good, and it works very well. So yeah, as I conclude, I would say if all teachers can be made aware of the methods and approaches to use in competence-based language teaching, then implementing it will be a success. From my own experience, all these methods come with their own advantages and disadvantages. Therefore, teachers should use a variety of teaching methods. Hence, the call for eclectic teachers cannot be overemphasized. So, as teachers, we are supposed to use a variety of teaching methods. At times, it is good to combine methods for a better result. At times, one method can work well. For example, when we are teaching reading, I can recommend the phonics, synthetic phonic method. It is very, very good. That one can be recommended. It is highly recommended even by most researchers. And even according to my own experience, it is very good. As you teach the learners, they are able to get the concept, they are able to know the sounds, and everything else will just fall in place. Thank you so much for listening. This is all I had to share with you today.
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you so much for this wonderful presentation. And thank you, colleagues, for being here to partake of this particular presentation. At this time, we'll ask if there are any comments or questions. We can handle those in the next 15 minutes at least. Any questions? So you can either raise your hand. There's a hand raising facility on this. Barbara, please keep sharing the slide. You can keep sharing the slide for now, so that maybe people would want to refer to a certain slide. Okay. So if there's anyone with a question or a comment, a contribution, now it's your time to do so. You can unmute your microphone or just raise your hand, then we'll recognize you and give you the floor to contribute. If you can't use the method, the raise your hand, you can even use the chat box. I can see Corina has used the chat method, and she's just impressed by the way the methods have been explained and the emphasis that has been placed on each of the method. You can do the same if you have something to share in the chat box. Wilfred Piri, Cynthia Salome, Gift Banda. If you have anything to share, you can do that. Okay, it seems we have no questions or comments apart from the one we got from Colina. Remember, you can watch the recording of this session on our Facebook page as well as on our YouTube channel, which is LATAZ. You can find this and the previous webinars. The recordings are there. And if you would like to contribute to the discussions, you can either go to our Facebook page and make your comment there when we post the link to the video. After watching it, you can, our Facebook page is Language Teachers Association of Zambia, LATAZ. There's also a group that you can join by the same name, so that you can join the conversation with the rest of the LATAZ family and the language teaching fraternity, so that we move as we prepare. As a country, we are launching or we are rolling out competence-based language teaching next year. I urge all language teaching professionals in our country to pay particular interest to what we are trying to do as an association to get everybody ready. We cannot be in your locality physically, but we have provided this platform so that we can share information that will help you prepare to receive and implement the curriculum. It's coming. Right now, it's under pilot. Some selected schools in all the provinces are piloting until the 14th 15th of November. So you are urged to join in the preparation for the launch so that we work together and produce the literate child that the country so desires. The one who is competent in not only reading, but also analyzing and creating at the end of the day. So at this time, we are going to close. So a big thank you to Barbara for the well-researched and presented a session so that we have all of us on board. Please, once the video is shared, let's share with all our friends and colleagues so that they can learn something and be there to support this work. Next week, we will have Rhoda Kombe, who will focus on methods and approaches, this time targeting the secondary school session at the secondary level. And Rhoda is from Eastern Province, so she's going to take us through the same, but now focusing on the secondary school level of method. So let's make a date and be there to help and get to understand how we move from primary to secondary. After next week, I think we are going to have technology enhanced language teaching under CBLT. So stay tuned to our sessions, attend and share with everyone. Also, we urge you to search our YouTube channel, LATAZ, and click on the notification bell so that whenever we post a video, you receive an alert to your phone and you can watch and then contribute. There's actually a comment section there where you can add your comments to your impressions of these sessions. Thank you so much. Have a productive week ahead, and thank you for joining us today. Once again, thank you so much, Barbara, for a well done presentation.
Thank you as well for having me on this program.
Okay, good night, everyone, and have a blessed week. Mm-hmm.